Hi, I'm Jeff Murr. I want to welcome you to True Texas History. I know it's been a while since I put up a new video, but had a request and finally had some time to go ahead and do it. So I was going to do one on Johnny Ringo in Texas. Johnny Ringo, the name itself is legendary, and people who have kept up with Wild West legends are familiar with Johnny Ringo and his involvement with incidents out there in Tombstone, Arizona. What we're going to do today is take a look at Johnny Ringo's early life and leading on up to the Tombstone episode. He was born John Peters Ringo, and his dad was Martin Ringo. And he was actually born in Indiana. He was born May 3rd, 1850. Okay, now let's go ahead and put that on a timeline. 1850 is when he was born. And the war between the states is going to erupt in 1861. And he's over there in Indiana. Now, after spending his first few years in Indiana, his family went ahead and moved to Gallatin, Missouri. So they were there in some disputed areas. Now, I believe it was either his mother or his sister married, had a twin and married Cole Younger. And so he was cousins with the Younger gang, and yes, that is the same Younger bunch that ran with Jesse James. The family lived there in Missouri, and Cole was growing up in pretty turbulent times, and after two Confederate soldiers had been found on nearby property and hanged, Dad thought it is time to leave and move to California. So the family went ahead and packed up and headed to California. Unfortunately, on the way out to California, there was an accident where Martin Ringo's shotgun fell down, went off, killed him. And the family was forced to go ahead and have to bury their father there on the trail. Now it's speculated either back in Missouri or there on the trail that Johnny Ringo had learned how to go ahead and handle a gun. I'm not sure, but I imagine he did have some gun skills, being that the family was traveling to California, and it's to travel to California without knowing some gun skills would be pretty dangerous. Okay, the family moved to the San Jose area of California, and while they were there, he did spend some time on the Younger Ranch. Yes, the Youngers had some land out there, and he spent time out there. When he got to be a little older, back in 1870, he decided that he was going to seek his fortune, so to speak, with some relatives located back in Texas. And so he ended up coming to Texas, and there's record that he showed up in Mason County. And while he was there in Mason County, he made friends with an ex-Texas Ranger by the name of Scott Cooley. Now, Scott Cooley, I'll have to go into just a little bit. He was an ex-Texas Ranger, and keep in mind that during some of this time, the official Texas Rangers had been sidelined, and they brought in the Texas State Police to go ahead and handle things. And the Texas State Police, they finally removed him at the end of Reconstruction, to the applause of many people, because a lot of people hated the Texas State Police, and the Rangers were reinstituted. But for a while there, some of the Rangers were out of work, and apparently Scott Cooley was one of them. Now, Scott Cooley, as a young man, his parents had died, and he was raised by a fellow by the name of Tim Williamson. I bring all this up because in making friends with Scott Cooley, John Ringo found himself in the midst of some conflicts going on there in Mason County. Mason County was in the middle of what they call the Mason County Wars or the Hoodoo Wars. What that boiled down to, there was a lot of friction between some of the English slash Texas settlers and some of the German immigrants that had come to town. And not only were the disagreements along lines of national origin, there was also a distinct difference in politics. The Germans were very much oriented toward the new Union and so forth. The old Texans slash Anglos were oriented more toward the old democratic order of things. And so there was some political turmoil there. And in the midst of this turmoil, there were allegations of rustling. And the Germans were accusing some of the Anglos of having stole their cattle. And it got to the point where some of the men that had been arrested for cattle stealing were put in a local jail, and a group of German vigilantes went ahead and broke some of them out of jail and proceeded to go ahead and start hanging them, killing some of them. And the Texas Rangers tried to intervene, but ironically, like history repeats itself, by the time law enforcement arrived, it was already too late. Now, fortunately, they got there enough to rescue one of the men that had been taken from the jail, who was hanged but had not officially died yet. One of those that did die was Tim Williamson, and with Tim Williamson dying, Scott Cooley went into a rage. He wanted revenge. They were bound and determined to go ahead and get the men who were involved in killing Tim Williamson. And so Cooley and John Ringo went on a spree, hunting down and killing the people that they associated with the death of Williamson. Now, some of the historic reports attribute the deaths to Johnny Ringo, some to Tim Williamson. When you start associating with outlaws, one reputation kind of rubs off on the other. And this is going to come into play later on. There was killing both ways until finally the Rangers under John B. Jones, that company came in, settled things in Mason County. To go ahead and make a long story short. Now, Ringo was arrested along with Williamson and taken to the Lampasas County Jail. They broke out of the jail. And Williamson made it to Blanco County, where he later died. Now, Johnny Ringo went ahead, and strangely enough, he found his way to a place called Loyal Valley, Texas, where he ran for constable and was elected constable. That's one of those things about some of those law enforcement outlaw types. It's almost like they switch hats from time to time. He served there for a little while, eventually got into trouble again, was arrested, taken to jail, I believe in Austin. And while he was there in Austin, or prison, he met John Wesley Hardin. and the two got to know each other. So already we have Johnny Ringo, Johnny Ringo being associated with the Texas Rangers, associated with John Wesley Hardin, caught up in this Mason County feud. And if that wasn't enough trouble, he went ahead and decided to go on down to the New Mexico, Arizona area, Tombstone area. And of course, this was after the war, and there were people moving out west. And although he was out west, there were people from Texas that recognized him and some of his associations and stories. So he essentially had a reputation that followed him there. While in Tombstone, there's many varied stories. He fell in with the group known as the Cowboys. At times, he would refer to himself as the King of Cowboys. Literally, it was a bunch of people. And old man Clanton was pulling the strings for a lot of them. Now, at one point, the Pima County Democratic Party, there was an election for sheriff, and the Pima County Democratic Party had John Ringo and Ike Clanton in charge of literally counting the ballots for sheriff. Who would think that there would be, malfeasance in elections in Arizona? Oh, gee. When the landslide election came in for the Democratic person running for sheriff, an investigation was launched, and the results were overturned, and the Republican sheriff was put in place. But that was just another thing that got the Clantons, and along with the Clantons, Johnny Ringo and the Earps on a little bit upset with each other. Now, the history books do document that Doc Holliday and Johnny Ringo did have it in for each other. They never did get along with each other. And there is some evidence that John Ringo may have attended college back when he was in Missouri. He was known for going around quoting Shakespeare. There's some debate whether or not he knew Latin. Some of the items I found said that he was familiar with Latin. Some say that that's just some stories. I'm not sure. The historians don't agree on that one, but if you're basing all your history on the movies like Tombstone, they lead you astray with some of those things. Now, when the big gunfight at the OK Corral occurred, Johnny Ringo was not in town. He was out of town in California visiting family. He came back in town later and was involved in some more commotion involving the Earps, and actually he was part of the posse arranged by the local sheriff to run the Earps out of town. So there was some bad blood with the Earps. I'm not going into all those details because that gets into more Arizona history. The really interesting thing is the death of Johnny Ringo, because he was found literally kind of leaning against a tree. Some reports say that his revolver had all the bullets. Some say that one was missing. What is clear is that there was a shot in his head that went in, near the eyeball and out through the back of the head. His cartridge belts were full. His boots were taken off of him and apparently tied to the saddle of his horse, which was found 2 days later. Pieces of his jacket had been torn off or cut off, and his feet were tied together. Supposedly the pistol was caught on chain that he was wearing, and so his hand didn't go down all the way. And there's been a big debate as to how he died. The official report from the local sheriff said it was suicide. Some people say Doc Holliday, but Doc Holliday, there's evidence that he was in Colorado at the time. There's some evidence that the Earps may have done it, or claimed that they went ahead and staged the scene. I don't know. I just know that there's some curiosities. There's also the possibility that another outlaw that he was running with at the time may have gone ahead and killed him. As there were, while he was with the Clantons, there were episodes where the rustlers ambushed Mexican cattlemen and so forth, and took their gold. So there was possibility that it was a fight over money. I don't know. But I found the story of Johnny Ringo quite fascinating. And it's another one of those stories of gunfighters having Texas roots. And with a lot of those gunfighters in the aftermath of the war, you've got to look at it through the lens of realizing there were still some political overtones. It's almost like for these people, the war never ended and they continued fighting, whether it be the James, the Youngers, or even like Johnny Ringo. These issues and some of the bitterness from those areas continued years after the war. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. If you have further questions, I'll be glad to go ahead and look at them. I think this gives you good background on Johnny Ringo, because not many people know about him, and they surely don't know much about his Texas connections. Hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you next time. Until next time, vaya con Dios, my friends. Goodbye.